Welcome to Women Being Loved, a weekly podcast and upcoming book series to help you and other women 35 and beyond attract deep, passionate, lasting love while honoring your authentic self. I'm Tadra, your host. Three traits that nurture lasting love. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. I'm so happy that you took time to be with me today. If you're listening on YouTube, please jump into the conversation in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. There's this interesting thing that happens at the beginning of relationships. As we're getting to know another person and they're getting to know us, we're trying to understand and create the relationship's dynamics. Every single relationship you have has dynamics, starting in your family of origin. So that's why, for example, you'll have that one uncle, I'm going to call him Uncle Mike, that one uncle, Uncle Mike, who ruins every Thanksgiving with political talk at the dinner table. And yes, this happens every year, no matter who's president, because really, Uncle Mike don't care about politics. He just enjoys drama. So everyone in the family wants him to just shut up and let them eat their food. But you know what? No one has given Uncle Mike the ultimatum. Stop starting fights over the turkey and gravy, or you're not invited next year. Okay? Maybe you have that one sister who's always lending everyone in the family money, even though she is not at all, by far, the person with the most money in the clan. Actually, she may be working 2 jobs, but that's her role. She is the family bank, even though she resents it. And finally, talking about family dynamics, there's that one aunt that everybody knows does not tolerate nonsense. She's like Medea, Tyler Perry's character, like the 500 films made with Medea. She is very, don't bring your foolishness to my house. I wish I could do a really good Medea impression, but I'll just embarrass myself. So let's move along. The point is, we all know our particular family dynamics. These dynamics become ingrained because of boundaries established or not established. So that's the first trait that we're looking at today, creating healthy boundaries. So in new romantic relationships, both people are trying to determine what's acceptable to the other person and how you will make decisions inside of the relationship. So for instance, will one person's opinions or preferences carry more weight than the other? There's this exploring of our personalities, preferences, strengths, weaknesses, all of that between you and this new potential partner. So on the surface, it could be as simple as who should plan the first date and where will you go? So let's say for this first date scenario, he wants to impress you right out the gate. He wants to throw around some Benjamins. So he pitches a more formal dinner at an expensive restaurant with white tablecloths and jazz in the background. But you say, nope. First dates in your world are casual. Let's save the expensive dinner and the white tablecloths and all that stuff for a date down the road when we both have established that it's not going to be torturous to sit in a restaurant across from each other for 2 hours over a meal and try and make conversation. So that's an example of establishing boundaries. So let's say your coffee date goes really well, along with several other dates. Say you've done 5, 6, 7 dates and they've all been really great, really creative. There's a vibe, you're connecting. So you're thinking, well, you're definitely moving into couple territory. And now you're like, you know what? I would like to hear from him daily, like little text messages. Hey, babe, how you doing? Anything. You say this and he explains that, you know what? I really do enjoy your company and I do enjoy talking to you, but 2 to 3 times a week is good. He's setting a boundary. You are both testing and creating boundaries. And this is an important stage of dating because it tells you if it makes sense to continue down this road. And it's important because what is established in the beginning is hard to unravel in the middle. So I'm going to say that part again because it's really important. What is established in the beginning is hard to unravel in the middle. Just a side note, I am so sorry that there is that weird clicking sound going on here and there in the audio. I tried to get it out and it's something strange that's happening in the house that we're in. I do apologize. I hope it's not distracting. A woman I interviewed recently told me that she knew in her first month of marriage that her husband could not balance the checkbook. But they attended a church that told her that he should be in charge of the money. So the wife ignored the facts that were right in front of her that said, hey, this task is better handled by you. Years down the line, as their finances became more entangled and mismanaged, she decided that they needed to revisit this thing about who handles the finances. Her husband did not take this kindly. It smacked against his ego. He dug his heels in further. He internalized everything and said to himself that his wife thought he was unintelligent, incapable of doing anything, not just the finances, anything. Like he took it there. Now, of course, she wasn't saying that at all. There were areas, she said, where her husband was undisputedly doing a great job and operating in his zone of genius. The finances just wasn't one of those places. But because they had not faced this truthfully in the beginning, unfortunately, it became a battleground. Learning how to establish healthy boundaries before you get into a committed relationship is golden because you won't be able to anticipate what scenarios will arise that need your, say, a boundary discussion, but you will already have the tools that you need to make those discussions successful. And here's the important part. If both of you are there with the same purpose, if you both want to create a smooth operating system in your relationship, how do you become good at establishing boundaries if you've never done it? Well, you can start out right now by practicing with your family and your friends. A perfect example, when it's your turn to host Thanksgiving dinner, let Uncle Mike know that he can leave his politics at home or he can skip eating turkey at your place. So those are his options. Even though you still love him, I love you, Uncle Mike, but you ain't bringing this up in here. No, we're not doing this year. Or if you're the family bank and you're fed up, say that. Say, guys, hello, I can't keep doing this. Look at any area of your life where you're doing something that makes you feel drained or resentful and determine if you need to set a boundary there. And if so, girl, set it. Set it. Spoiler alert. If you've, how do I say this? If you've naturally just gone along in the past and really avoided conflict at every possible juncture, right? Any even semblance of conflict, you're like, nope, I'm out. This boundary stuff is going to feel really uncomfortable in the beginning. I'm so sorry. I can tell you this from experience, but practicing this will give you the muscles you need to establish boundaries in a romantic relationship. All right, boundaries was a little long. Let's move along to the second trait. Let's see if you can guess what it is. I have definitely been in relationships where it was every man or every woman for themselves. These relationships were like museum heist films. You know what I mean? Where everyone agrees in the beginning that we are on the same page. We have the same goal. Get into the Louvre, get the Mona Lisa, get out. But somewhere in the middle of the heist, one person decides to steal the Mona Lisa for themselves and cut their partner, aka me, out of the riches. That makes for great entertainment, but really crappy romantic relationships. By the way, Side note, if you want to see a great romantic heist film, yes, that is a thing, romance and heist. Because, nothing brings two people together like stealing stuff. Watch the 1999 Thomas Crown Affair with Rene Russo and Pierce Brosnan. Now, if you've already seen it, watch it again. It's great. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. What am I talking about? Am I saying you should be stealing priceless art? No, do not say that I told you to do that. What I am saying is being a team player, caring about the other person, sharing the money from the sale of the Mona Lisa. Just be considerate. I know. It seems like something everyone should have learned in kindergarten, but you would be surprised. Being considerate doesn't have to be a huge gesture. It just has to be a meaningful one. I remember a woman named Tanya. She shared with me what stuck out about her husband when they first started dating. So they had been on like one date already, and that date had gone really well. So he wanted to do it again. So Tanya told me 2 days later, he rang me up and said, I remember you said your kids attended this particular school, and I know that you'll have to pick them up at 2:30. So I was thinking maybe we could do a quick lunch at this place because it's really close to their school. Tanya said, I was thinking this is the first guy who actually listened to me talk about my children, then retained that information and used it in a good way. Okay, there we go. Consideration. By the way, Tanya was 40 when she met this man who is now her husband, and her story is included in my book. Another example, a woman named Lori. Lori is also in the book. Let me just say, I have a book coming out. It'll be out by fall. It's called Love Will Find You. I'll talk about it a little bit more as we go along. So Lori said about her relationship, after 15 years of marriage, he still leaves me little love notes around the house telling me how much he loves and appreciates me. Most times they're attached to stuffed animals. He's just a wonderful person. I'm so glad we found each other. We're a team and nothing's going to change that. Lori met her husband at 35. This isn't just about the other person, by the way. The women also shared what they did that made their husbands or wives feel loved and appreciated. And this is an important part. It started during dating. If you see in the beginning that the person you're spending a lot of time with really doesn't consider you, is self-centered, self-consumed, or any other form of selfish, you could choose to discuss what's happening. If you think you see relationship potential there, then talk about it. Like, hey, it doesn't seem like you really, whatever. I'm not even going to fill that in. Whatever this person's doing that you're like, hello, or you could choose to move on. If there's disrespect and there's really no thought of you and you're like, no. A lot of times we women take on romantic projects. Yeah, we do. We tell ourselves that the other person never had someone love them the way we can love them. So they'll change. They will, from being an arrogant, inconsiderate ass as soon as they realize we love them. That doesn't often work, especially if that person already likes who they are. It happens. So you'll just waste your time and you will frustrate both of you. Story time. I had a man in my life who was disrespectful to me, unfaithful to me, and so much more. But I'd been trying to give him the benefit of the doubt for years. And I would schedule counseling appointments that he would sleep through. I am dead serious. The man would fall asleep during counseling sessions. And finally, years in, he told me, it seems like you don't like me. I like me, and I think I'm fine the way I am. Oh, girl. I was infuriated with him because I thought, why didn't you say that years ago? But you know what? Looking back, he did in so many nonverbal ways, but I was over there busy martyring myself for no reason. It was just the dynamics that we had. He did awful things. I tried to forgive him and help him heal. Maybe a part of me also believed that lie that a lot of women believe, that all men are selfish and awful in some way. So like, hello, it is what it is. Like, just deal with it. No, this is a complete lie. My husband, Paul, is nothing like that. And lots of other men aren't either. You may have to be patient to find a good one who also matches what you are looking for, but they're out there. And being a woman past 40 does not disqualify you at all. So if there's a nasty voice in your head saying that, tell it to be quiet because it's not true. Okay. Before I conclude with trait number 3, I want to take a moment and just say a proper thank you to 3 women who gave support to my crowdfunding campaign for my book that I keep mentioning, but it's a book of real life love stories called Love Will Find You, and it will be available by fall. So BJ Cummings, Zoe Kores, Kores, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and Claire Mason. Thank you so much for believing in this project. Really, the 3 of you, I'm just very grateful. And all 3 of you will receive invites to my private online launch party. So I'm going to open the first box of books with you, pop a cork, do a little dance on Zoom. It'll be a lot of fun. If you, dear listener, would like to offer support to help me hire a proofreader and a PR professional so we can get this hope-filled book into the hands of as many single midlife women as possible, go to womenbeingloved.com. It'll also be in the show notes, and choose your support level and the thank you perk that you'd like to receive. We've got some really fun perks over there, so check it out. All right, now on to the 3rd and final trait we're going to discuss today. Let's imagine for a moment that you finally landed a great job that you really love, and that job aligns with your values perfectly. They're doing good in the world. Fill in the blank with whatever that means to you, right? Doing good in the world. You work hard because it matters to you, and you definitely have visions in your mind of you moving up at this company and just really making a difference. Then one Friday afternoon, you're called into the conference room and fired. Very unceremoniously. There were no reviews, no warnings that anything was wrong, just bye-bye. You clean out your desk, you hold your tears together until you get to the car, and then you call that friend who's been in your life since high school and you let it all out. There are tears, there's snot, maybe some expletives, probably some expletives. Now, let's rewind to the beginning. Like in the example from last week's episode when I talked about the movie Sliding Doors, right? They rewind. Anyway, listen to that episode. You get fired. Everything happens the same. But now you're walking to your car with your plant, your dog photo, and let's say your ex calls you at just the moment that your butt hits the seat of your car before you get a chance to call your best friend. Let's pretend you pick up. You probably wouldn't, but let's say you do. You pick up. You're not going to have the meltdown with him. You're going to pretend everything is fine. Right? Everything's fine. And by the way, what do you want? Why are you calling me? Right? Why didn't you do the same thing with your ex that you did with your best friend? Why the 2 different behaviors? Because you no longer want to be vulnerable to your ex, while being vulnerable with your best friend feels safe. So that's our 3rd trait, vulnerability. And it's hard. It is hard, but it's required if we want relationships that are deeper than surface level. And for a lot of people, maybe for you, being vulnerable to another person feels really scary, especially if you've not had safe, nurturing families of origin. That's a huge, huge thing. If you've been vulnerable in relationships with a romantic partner in the past and that person abused your trust and caused you a lot of pain. And so now maybe we're in this place where it's like, I don't feel so good about this. Because vulnerability is really about allowing someone else to see you, right? Really see you when you're not perfect, when you're not holding the most powerful position, and that can cause a lot of anxiety. I have experienced this deeply in my soul. The weird part is, even if you've learned to be vulnerable in certain situations, say like with your family or your best friend, it may still be hard to be vulnerable with a romantic partner. And how you're vulnerable tends to be different with each person in your life. So I often say that this is developed within the relationship, whereas the other things like being considerate and creating boundaries, those, you can really practice those outside of your romantic relationship. But even if you practice being vulnerable with one person, it doesn't mean it's going to translate really well to another person. I think personally, it's important not to be vulnerable too soon in a relationship. I can't tell you the perfect time to mention your insecurity about your looks or about your divorce or anything else, but the first date probably isn't it. Making sure you're valued before you go bearing your soul is vital. But once you do know that you're in a safe, loving relationship, it becomes almost imperative that you begin to share more deeply of yourself. And one reason for that is that it creates connection, but also it's exhausting to cover things up and pretend that you've got everything together all the time, that nothing bothers you. Girl, life throws crazy situations at every single one of us, and we need to express what we're going through, who we are in the difficulties of life, and have somebody hold space for us. A spouse, significant other, however you want to say that, should be the person that you can trust with your hurt and your disappointments, your setbacks, your dashed expectations, all of it. Now, let me just say here, that doesn't mean that you don't have friends and family that can fill this space for you. So don't feel like you have no options if you don't have a mate. I'm also not saying that your spouse needs to bear it all. They don't have to be every single thing in your world. But when you're dating, make sure you see qualities in that person that says they could be a part of your safe team. That's what I've got to say about vulnerability. It's a bit of an emotional topic for me, but I've gotten much better at allowing Paul, my husband, to see me, to really see me, instead of trying to just keep everything close to my chest. We talked about 3 traits and behaviors that nurture lasting love. By the way, I stressed lasting, but longevity in and of itself is not the goal. If your relationship is not healthy and thriving, it's not a win. And don't be afraid to take your time assessing the traits and behaviors of a potential partner and communicating your needs. Also, take time to build up traits that make you a great partner as well. Next week, I'm asking the question, is romance dead? Like, is it dead? Is it just gone? Subscribe so you don't miss it. If you're enjoying this podcast, consider sponsoring it with a one-time or ongoing gift. Details are in the show notes. I love you. Bye till next Thursday.